The rain drizzled softly onto the roof of Nelson's mansion as he gazed out the large window, lost in his thoughts. Despite being one of the wealthiest men in the country, owner of numerous businesses, cars, and properties, Nelson felt like an outsider in his own home. His wife, Priska, only smiled when there was money. His daughter Ruth spent her days flaunting luxurious items online, while his son, Jeremiah, was quiet, always close to him. One evening, Nelson sat at the dinner table, watching his family eat. Priska didn't even look at him. Ruth was absorbed in her phone, laughing at something online, and only Jeremiah noticed his father, asking, "Dad, are you okay?" Nelson forced a faint smile. "I'm fine, son." But deep down, he wasn't fine. He was exhausted, tired of the fake smiles and being used for his wealth. He needed to know if his family truly cared for him or if they only stayed because of the luxury. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Nelson called his personal assistant, Samuel. "Samuel," he said over the phone, "I want you to transfer everything to a private account. Close the companies for now and tell everyone I'm taking a break. And most importantly, no one should know I'm still wealthy." Samuel was puzzled. "Sir, are you sure? This will shake the whole family." "That's the plan," Nelson replied calmly. "I'm going to test them." The next morning, Nelson gathered his family in the living room. Priska entered, frowning. "Why are we all here so early?" Nelson took a deep breath. "I have bad news. I've lost everything. The business crashed, the banks have frozen our accounts. We have nothing left." Priska jumped up. "What do you mean nothing? You're joking, right?" "I wish I was," Nelson said sadly. "We have to leave this house today. I have one place we can go now, my late father's small house in the village." Ruth screamed, "Village? God forbid. Me? In a village?" Jeremiah quietly looked at his father and asked, "Are you serious, Dad?" Nelson nodded. "Yes, it's the only option." Priska shouted, "You useless man. How could you lose everything just like that? What kind of man are you?" Nelson said nothing. He just turned and walked away. Jeremiah followed him. "Dad," he said softly, "don't worry. Everything will be fine." Nelson smiled at his son, a tear escaping his eye. "Thank you, Jeremiah. You don't know how much that means to me." By evening, they had packed a few clothes into bags. The mansion was silent, no maids, no drivers. Nelson drove the family in an old, small car that Samuel had arranged for this plan. The road to the village was rough and dusty. Priska complained constantly, Ruth refused to roll down her window, and Jeremiah quietly enjoyed the breeze, holding his father's hand from the back seat. After hours of driving, they arrived at a small compound with a single house made of mud bricks and an iron roof. Priska stepped out of the car, staring in disbelief. "What is this horror, Nelson? Are you crazy? Are we supposed to live here?" Ruth slowly opened the door, covering her nose. "Yuck. What is that smell? This place stinks." Nelson stepped out of the car and calmly surveyed the surroundings. "This house belonged to my late father. We'll manage here for now." Priska shouted, "Me? I should manage in this? After all the years of living in mansions, you want me to stay here? You must be joking." Ruth shook her head. "I can't survive here, Daddy. There's no Wi-Fi, no AC, no bathroom mirror. How do people even live like this?" Only Jeremiah remained quiet. He came down and helped his father carry the bags inside. The front door creaked as they opened it. The living room had just 2 plastic chairs and an old wooden table, cobwebs in the corners, and the air smelled of dust and sweat. Priska refused to enter. "Nelson, you better take me back to the city now. I'm not entering that nonsense." "We have no choice," Nelson said. "This is all we have for now." Ruth hissed loudly. "I should have stayed with my boyfriend." Jeremiah turned and stared at her. "So, we're really in this together?" Shouldn't we try to support Dad instead of complaining? Priska shot him a look. Will you shut up? Must you talk every time? Do you think we're all here to suffer with your father? Jeremiah shook his head in disbelief but continued helping his father arrange things inside. Nelson smiled slightly, patting Jeremiah on the back. Later that evening, Nelson tried to boil water outside using firewood, but he had forgotten how to light a fire. His hands trembled, and smoke filled his eyes. Jeremiah came over and helped arrange the sticks, blowing air into the fire. I used to watch the village boys do this during holidays, Jeremiah said softly. I remember. Nelson nodded. Thank you, son. You're the only one making this easier for me. Meanwhile, Priska sat on a rock, staring at her broken nails. This is a nightmare. No cream, no TV, not even a fan. God punish poverty. Ruth was busy trying to get a signal on her phone, raising it high and walking around the compound. There's no Instagram, no Snap, no TikTok. Are we still in this country? That night, they all slept in one room. A small mattress was spread on the floor. There was no electricity, just a lantern with a low flame. Mosquitoes buzzed loudly in the dark. Priska kept slapping her arms, cursing under her breath. Ruth tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Nelson lay on the mat, staring at the ceiling. Jeremiah lay beside him, gently tapping his shoulder. Dad, he whispered. Don't worry. I know this is hard, but we'll make it. Those words touched Nelson deeply. He turned slightly and looked at Jeremiah in the darkness. Thank you. You don't know how much you're helping me stay sane. For the first time in years, Nelson felt a genuine connection, not with his wife or daughter, but with his son. The next morning, the rooster crowed loudly, waking them all. Ruth shouted, "What kind of nonsense bird is that? Why is it screaming in my ear?" Nelson stood up, stretched, and said, "It's morning. Time to start our new life." Ruth came outside, looking terrible, her wig half off, mosquito bites all over her arms. I can't do this. I need to go back to the city. I feel sick. Nelson ignored her and picked up a hoe. We need to start farming if we're going to eat. We must work. Priska burst out laughing. Did I hear you right? Farm? I want Priska to go to the farm, Nelson said, but Ruth folded her arms, shaking her head. Never. I'd rather die. However, Jeremiah took the hoe from his father. Let's go, Dad. I'll go with you. Nelson smiled proudly, though tears were hidden behind his eyes. Let's go, son. As they walked toward the farm, Nelson felt something deep in his heart ache, but at least one person still stood by him. Meanwhile, Priska stayed behind, contemplating how to escape the hardships of village life. She noticed a group of village women gossiping beneath a mango tree. Among them was a man dressed in fine native attire, wearing a gold chain and having a large belly. He looked wealthy. He was the village chief, Chief Morgan. Priska's eyes lit up immediately. That was the start of her betrayal journey. Life in the village was far from what Priska and Ruth were accustomed to. By the third day, everything felt like a curse. The heat was unbearable, there was no fridge, no running water, and worst of all, no housemaids to do the chores. Priska sat beneath a mango tree, using a hand fan made from palm leaves. Her eyes were full of frustration. This is not life, she muttered. This is punishment. Ruth passed by wearing mismatched slippers, holding a small bucket to fetch water. Her makeup had long washed off, and her once perfectly styled hair was now rough and dry. Mommy, she whispered, we need to do something fast. I can't cope anymore. My skin is getting dark. Priska looked around and spotted the man from earlier, the village chief, coming out of a nearby compound. He wore an expensive wrapper, gold chains, and dark glasses. Two young girls giggled as they followed him, carrying his bag and cane. That must be the chief, Priska said to Ruth, her eyes narrowing. He looks wealthy. Ruth turned and stared. Is that how chiefs look in villages? See how he's shining. Priska stood up and adjusted her wrapper. I'm going to greet him. Mommy, Ruth whispered. What are you planning? Priska smiled. Sometimes when one door closes, another window opens. Let me go and see if this window has air conditioning. She walked confidently towards the chief, swinging her hips and pretending to limp slightly to appear fragile. Good morning, sir, she greeted, bowing slightly. Chief Morgan looked at her and smiled broadly. Well, who do we have here? You're not from this village. I'm not, Priska said. We just moved in. My husband brought me and our children here after losing everything in the city. It's been so hard. Chief Morgan chuckled. A fine woman like you shouldn't suffer. Why don't you sit with me for a while? Priska sat beside him under his shaded hut. Thank you, Chief. You are too kind. He waved at one of the young girls to bring her a drink. Soon, Priska was laughing and sipping a cold malt while her husband, Nelson, and Jeremiah sweated under the hot sun on the farm, digging the tough earth with bare hands. Back at the farm, Nelson looked up at the sun and wiped the sweat off his forehead. This land is tough, but we must keep going. Jeremiah nodded. We'll plant cassava here, then maize on the other side. Smart boy, Nelson said proudly. You're learning fast. They worked for hours before returning home. When they reached the compound, Priska was already there, smiling and whistling. A strange sight, Nelson remarked. Where are you coming from? He asked, surprised. Just walking around, Priska said quickly. I met some village women. They showed me where to fetch water and wash clothes. Nelson raised an eyebrow. You washed clothes? Priska laughed awkwardly. Well, I tried. Jeremiah looked at her fingers. There was no sign of soap or water. Her wrapper smelled like perfume, not firewood, but he said nothing. Later that evening, Ruth slipped out of the house and went to the only small bar in the village. A group of young and older men sat outside, drinking palm wine and playing music. She sat at the corner, crossed her legs, and began to scroll through her phone, even though there was no network. A married man named Mr. Brown noticed her. He was in his late 40s, overweight, and owned a small shop in the market. He walked over and said, You're too beautiful to be sitting alone. Ruth smiled. I'm not from here. I can see that, he replied. What's a city girl like you doing here? My foolish father brought us to suffer, she said. He said he lost all his money. Mr. Brown smiled. I can make you comfortable. If you want, I can give you money, even buy you small things to remind you of city life. Ruth raised an eyebrow. Really? What's the catch? He laughed. No catch. Just come and visit me once in a while. My wife doesn't have to know. Ruth bit her lip, pretending to think. Okay, but you must keep your word. Of course, he said, already placing his hand on her shoulder. And just like that, Ruth began her secret life. Back at home, Nelson sat outside with Jeremiah under the moonlight. Dad, Jeremiah said, do you think we'll ever go back to the city? Nelson looked up at the stars. Maybe, but not until I find out who truly deserves it. Jeremiah didn't understand. What do you mean? Nelson sighed deeply. You'll understand soon. Every morning in the village felt like a punishment to Priska. There was no warm shower, no sweet-smelling body cream, and no breakfast in bed. Instead, it was wake up early, sweep the compound, fetch water, and eat dry cassava and pepper soup with no meat. Priska grumbled loudly one morning as she tied her wrapper loosely around her chest. What kind of useless life is this? I'm tired, Nelson. I didn't sign up for this village nonsense. Nelson, sitting outside, looked at her calmly. We have no choice, Priska. We're lucky to even have this roof over our heads. Priska hissed and stormed into the house. Unknown to Nelson, Priska had started disappearing every afternoon. She would tie her finest wrapper, wear perfume, and secretly save money to walk towards the only hotel in the village, Golden Moon Lodge. Inside the lodge, Chief Morgan sat like a king. He had already bribed the hotel receptionist, a young girl named Peace, with 10,000 naira every week to keep his secret visits with Priska hidden from his 4 wives. Peace, he would whisper, sliding her the money. If my wives ever come asking questions, you didn't see me. You understand? Peace would smile nervously and nod. Yes, Chief. I won't talk. One sunny afternoon, Priska entered the hotel, smiling, her hips swaying as she walked. Chief Morgan was already waiting in a private room, wearing only a white singlet and shorts. His gold chain dangled on his chest as he chewed roasted meat. My queen, he called out with a grin. You're even more beautiful today. Priska laughed sweetly and sat beside him on the bed. You just know how to make a woman feel special. Chief Morgan placed a piece of meat into her mouth. That's because you deserve it. Let me tell you something today. I'm listening, she said, biting the meat gently. I'm going to chase all my 4 wives away. Priska opened her mouth in shock. All of them? Yes. I don't want them anymore. You're the only woman that truly satisfies me. I want to marry you and build you a bigger house here in the village. Priska blinked quickly. You're serious? Chief Morgan nodded. Very serious. In fact, you know the king of this village is very old. He coughs every minute. Soon, he'll die, and guess what? What? Priska asked, her eyes wide. I will become king. I've already been told by the elders. I've given them gifts, big goats and bags of rice. They're already on my side. Priska gasped. So I will become the queen? Chief Morgan smiled. Of course, Queen Priska. They both laughed loudly. He then whispered closer to her ear. Do you know how much gold is worth, my dear? I have gold mines. I have land. I have shops and oil connections. I'm not just rich. I am powerful. Priska stared at him like a schoolgirl staring at a suitor. Chief, you're too much. Chief Morgan touched her cheek. Leave your husband. That poor man is finished. Come and live your best life. I want to rent a beautiful house for you here in this village, far away from your old husband and those useless children. Let me spoil you. Priska leaned closer and kissed his hand. Chief, you don't know how much I've suffered since we entered this village. I haven't even allowed Nelson to touch me. I don't even sleep near him anymore. I already belong to you. Chief Morgan laughed heartily. That's my woman. That's the spirit. He reached into his bag and brought out a small bundle of money. Take this 20,000 naira. Buy new wrappers. Next week, we'll start building your new house. I've already called a surveyor. Priska's heart danced. She held the money like a treasure. You're an angel, Chief. May your enemies never find you. They stayed together in the room until evening. When it was time to leave, Peace provided Priska with a backdoor exit so no one would see her leave. As Priska walked home, she smiled widely, eager to tell Ruth everything. Back at the house, Nelson sat outside with Jeremiah, fixing a broken bench. Jeremiah looked up and asked, "Where's Mom again?" Nelson sighed, "She went to fetch firewood, or maybe she's with the women's group." Jeremiah wasn't convinced. She doesn't even know how to carry firewood. When Priska finally returned, she tossed down a nylon bag filled with meat, ground nut oil, and canned fish. "Where did you get all these?" Nelson asked, shocked. "A woman in the village market gave them to me." "Her husband is a trader," Priska lied smoothly. That evening, Priska served only herself and Ruth the special meal. Nelson and Daniel had to settle for Gary again. Inside their room, Priska whispered to Ruth everything the chief had said. Ruth's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" she whispered. Priska nodded. "Very serious. He's even wealthier than your father ever was." Ruth giggled. Mommy, if I find my own sugar daddy here, I'll never go back to that boring city. They both laughed like mischievous sisters. The sun was scorching that afternoon. Villagers moved about slowly, carrying firewood on their heads and buckets of water in their hands. But Ruth sat outside their compound, chewing gum and scrolling through her dead phone, pretending to be busy, even though there was no signal. She wore a tight, shiny gown she had secretly borrowed from Mr. Brown, one of the married men she had been seeing. That same Mr. Brown had lied to his wife the day before, claiming he was attending a men's meeting in another village. Instead, he had taken Ruth down a bush path near his farm and spent hours with her under a tree. But bad news spreads quickly in the village. That afternoon, as Ruth relaxed outside, a woman stormed into their compound, her eyes filled with fury. It was Mrs. Brown, the wife of the man Ruth had been involved with. "Where is that worthless girl?" Mrs. Brown screamed. "Come out now." Ruth lifted her gaze from her chair, crossed her legs, and slowly removed her chewing gum. "Yes?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Who's screaming like a madwoman in this yard?" "You're the one I came to see, shameless thing." The woman barked, "Stay away from my husband." "Do you hear me? Stay away." Ruth burst into laughter. "Your husband, madam? Please, don't make me laugh. That man came to me himself. What do you want me to do?" Mrs. Brown's eyes burned with fury. "Shut your filthy mouth. I've been married to that man for 18 years, and now a little rat like you wants to ruin my home." Ruth stood up, still chewing gum, and sized the woman up. "Look at you. You look like poverty itself. No wonder your husband chose me. Look at your legs, dry like roasted plantain. No surprise he's tired of you. You're insulting me," Mrs. Brown shouted. Ruth stepped closer. "Let me warn you, old woman. Don't try me. You can't take me on. You're too classless and local. Your husband wants fresh skin, not these village bones. Do you hear me?" The woman's hands began to tremble. "Ruth, I'm warning you. Stay away from my husband, or else." Ruth clapped her hands. "Or else what?" "You won't do anything. You hear me? Nothing. In fact, I'll take your husband away from you completely. Just watch me." Mrs. Brown's eyes welled up with tears as she pointed a trembling finger at Ruth. "God will judge you." She then turned and stormed away, her body shaking with anger. As she left the compound, Nelson emerged from the corner where he had been fixing a broken chair. "Ruth," he called softly. She turned and rolled her eyes. "Oh great, here we go again." "I heard everything," Nelson said, walking slowly toward her. "Is it true? Are you really having an affair with that woman's husband?" Ruth picked at her nails and replied without looking at him. "So what if I am?" Nelson's voice was calm, but the pain in it was unmistakable. "My daughter, this is wrong. You're still young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Why would you choose to destroy someone else's home?" "Please, Daddy," Ruth hissed, "just mind your own business." Nelson paused. "Ruth, I am your father. That makes it my business." She snapped back, "What father? The one who dragged us from a mansion to this filthy village? You couldn't even run your business properly. Look at us now, fetching water, eating dry rice with no meat. And you still call yourself my father?" Nelson blinked, stunned by her words. "I know things are hard right now," he began, but... "But what?" she interrupted sharply. "There's no but. I hate this life. You ruined everything for us. I had friends, followers, boys begging to date me. Now I smell like firewood and wear slippers made from old tires." Tears welled up in Nelson's eyes, but he held them back. "All I'm saying," he whispered, "is that you should stop going after married men. Focus on building your life. This path you're on, it's not going to lead anywhere good." Ruth laughed bitterly. "Which life should I focus on? The one you destroyed? You lost your company, failed to protect your own family. Look around, Dad, we're living like rats. You're the reason we're suffering. And frankly, I don't care what you think of me. I'll do whatever I must to survive. She stormed into the house, leaving Nelson standing there, broken, speechless. From the window, Jeremiah had seen it all. He wanted to say something, but he knew it wasn't the right moment. His heart ached for his father. That night, Nelson sat outside alone, staring up at the sky. The moon shone bright, but inside, he felt nothing but darkness. He had lost control of his own home. The loyalty test he had started was now revealing more than he ever anticipated. The morning breeze was gentle. Birds chirped from the trees, but the silence inside their tiny house was suffocating. Jeremiah stood by the wooden door, watching his mother get dressed again. She wore her brightest wrapper, gold earrings, and a smear of red lipstick, far too much for early morning. He stepped closer, his voice calm but serious. "Mother." Priska turned slowly, adjusting her blouse. "What now, Jeremiah?" He folded his arms. "I need to talk to you. Please, just hear me out." She sighed and looked away. "If it's another lecture about how I live my life, save it. I'm tired." Jeremiah didn't move. "Mother, this life you and Ruth are choosing, it's not right. People are talking." Priska let out a dry chuckle. "Let them talk. Talking is free." "It's not about gossip," Jeremiah said, stepping closer. "It's about your name, your dignity. What happened to the strong woman I once looked up to?" Priska's face changed. She stared at him. "That strong woman died the day your father failed us. The day he moved us from a mansion into this shame." "He's still your husband," Jeremiah said, swallowing hard. "He was," she snapped. "Before he lost everything. Before he became a man who can't even afford bar soap." Jeremiah drew a slow breath. "So, what, you stopped loving him because he lost his money?" Priska laughed bitterly. "Who eats love? Who wears love? Love doesn't pay school fees or buy food." "Even if you're angry with Dad," Jeremiah said gently, "is this really the answer? Dressing up every morning like a stranger, disappearing, avoiding your home?" She picked up her cheap handbag. "Since your father chose to be useless, let him live with the consequences. I owe him nothing." Jeremiah frowned. "Even that man you're always following around, I don't see any difference he's making in your life. What has he done for you that Dad never did?" Priska lifted her chin proudly. "He gives me peace. He makes me feel seen. He reminds me I still matter." Jeremiah shook his head slowly. "He gives you pocket change, Mother. That's all. You used to sleep in luxury, fly to Lagos just to buy a wig. Now you collect 5,000 naira and smile like you won the lottery." Her face hardened. "Mind your tongue, Jeremiah. I'm still your mother." "I know," he replied, his tone firm. "And that's why I'm telling you the truth. I still believe you can change." Priska turned away, fiddling with her wrapper. "Your father will never rise again. He's finished." "You don't know that," Jeremiah said. She pointed around the room. "Does this place look like it belongs to a man with a future?" Jeremiah took a deep breath. "Yes. Because I believe in him. I believe he'll rise again. And when that time comes, you'll regret every cruel word." Priska laughed coldly. "Don't worry. Once the house I'm building is finished, I'll leave all of you, your broke father, this empty life, and your wishful thinking." Jeremiah clenched his fists. "You should be ashamed." Priska's eyes widened. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," he said. "Ashamed. Not just for betraying Dad, but for betraying yourself. For trading your pride for nothing." For a moment, her eyes softened. Just for a moment. Then she grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. "Be careful how you talk to me, Jeremiah. I'm still your mother." She walked out, leaving him standing there, tears silently gathering in his eyes. Priska walked down the dusty road, her wrapper slightly raised to avoid the mud. She swung her little bag and hummed a cheerful tune. Her thoughts were filled with dreams: the big house Chief Morgan promised, golden bracelets, a soft bed, and freedom from Nelson's poverty. But just then, a sharp voice rang out behind her. "Husband snatcher. So this is the road you pass every day to see the chief, eh?" Priska turned quickly. It was Ajoma, one of the chief's wives. She stood at the edge of the road, arms folded across her chest, eyes full of fire. Priska raised an eyebrow. "Look at this one, local champion. Who invited you to talk to me?" Ajoma stepped forward. "Me, local? You, who came from the city to scatter people's marriages. You should hide your face in shame." Priska hissed and moved closer. "You think I'm afraid of you? I used to wear diamonds. Do you even know the smell of perfume? Don't try me. I laughed hard at you, the one who claimed to be a billionaire's wife. What are you now doing with a poor chief who moves around with fake gold and empty promises?" Priska froze for a second. "What did you say?" she asked slowly. "I said the gold he wears is fake. Everybody knows you're following a man with glittering lies. Wise up, woman. Use your brain." Priska pushed her. "Don't insult me. You're just jealous because the chief picked me over you." Ajoma pushed her back. "Because you opened your legs for him." "Nonsense." In a flash, both women grabbed each other's wrappers. Dust flew as they dragged themselves in the middle of the road, shouting and cursing. Some passers-by stopped and watched, shaking their heads. A young boy ran past and shouted, "Come and see, city woman fighting over chief." Priska broke free and adjusted her wrapper quickly. "Rubbish," she shouted and stormed off, breathing heavily. She didn't stop until she reached Golden Moon Lodge. Her chest was rising and falling fast as she knocked on the door to Chief Morgan's usual room. "Come in," the chief said lazily. Priska opened the door and entered. She didn't even greet him. "What's the meaning of all this?" she asked angrily. The chief looked up from his plate of food. "What is it?" "I just fought one of your wives on the road," Priska snapped. She said, "Your gold is fake. That you're a poor chief with borrowed clothes and empty words." The chief wiped his mouth slowly. "And you believed her?" Priska folded her arms. "You know what? I've never really looked at that gold of yours." "Well, bring it." "Let me touch it." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you mad?" she shouted. "Answer me. Is your gold real or fake?" The chief stood up slowly. "Of course, it's real." Priska scoffed. "Lies. You must think I'm a fool. The only reason I didn't notice before was because I used to live with real diamonds. I wore the finest things. Our toilet had gold handles. Our kitchen had marble floors." The chief frowned. "And yet you left all that to follow me? You're the foolish one." "What did you say?" Priska gasped. "You heard me," the chief shouted. "What would I be doing with a woman who left her husband just because of money? If poverty can move your heart, then you have no value. You're cheap." Priska stepped back. "So, that's how you see me?" "Yes," he shouted. "You think you're special? You're just like the others. At least my wife stayed with me when I had nothing. But you? You ran from one poor man to another." Priska shook her head slowly, eyes full of tears and anger. "God will judge you." "Leave my room," the chief barked. "And don't come back here again." Priska turned and stormed out, her face red with shame as she walked home. Some villagers passing by saw her and whispered loudly. "See the city woman," one said. "Needed to sleep with people's husbands," another added. "She thought she was special," someone laughed. "Now, see her walking alone like a lost goat." Priska hurried her steps, pretending not to hear them, but their words followed her like shadows. Her dream life had scattered like dry leaves in the wind. She reached her compound, sat on a stone outside, and covered her face with her hands. Everything felt heavy. The laughter from the villagers, the insult from the chief, the shame from fighting in public, it all kept ringing in her ears. She placed her hand on her chest and sighed deeply. What kind of life is this? Just then, footsteps approached slowly behind her. She didn't need to turn. She already knew who it was. Priska, Nelson said quietly. She didn't answer. She just stared at the ground. He moved closer and stood before her. His voice was cold, low, and full of pain. I am ashamed of you. Priska looked up slowly. What did you say? I said I am ashamed, Nelson repeated. The whole village is talking. My name is everywhere because of you. They said you fought someone's wife on the road over a man. Priska stood up slowly. So, you came here to insult me too? Nelson's voice rose. What kind of woman have you become? Is this how far you've fallen? From a billionaire's wife to a roadside fighter? Priska laughed bitterly. And who made me fall? You. You failed us. You dragged us from the top to the bottom. Now, you open your dirty mouth to talk to me. Nelson shook his head. You call yourself a woman? You threw away your shame for small money. You chased after a man with fake gold, and you're still here shouting. Priska placed her hands on her hips. If you're done talking, go inside. This village belongs to me now. You're nobody here. Nelson looked her in the eye. You're the one who lost, not me. He turned and walked away. The next morning, Priska was sitting outside when Nelson came out. She ignored him. I got a job, he said calmly. Priska glanced at him. And so? In the city, he continued. As a security man. It's small, but it's a start. I told Jeremiah we'll be leaving tomorrow. Priska burst into laughter. Security man? You, in this your old age? You're truly finished. So, you want me to follow you to the city and be answering Madam Security Wife? I didn't ask you to follow me, Nelson said. You made your choice already. She laughed louder. Go. I prefer staying in this village than living with a security man. In fact, I'm happy. At least now I can breathe. Nelson nodded slowly. So be it. The next day, Jeremiah packed his small bag and followed his father to the village motor park. He didn't even look back. Priska and Ruth sat outside the house, laughing loudly. Finally, Ruth said, "The house is peaceful." Priska smiled. Nobody to disturb us with prayers and preaching. I can now live my life freely. Ruth giggled. No more Jeremiah asking where I'm going or when I'll be back. Priska raised her wrapper higher and stretched her legs. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Let them go and suffer in the city. This village is better than being around poverty and fake holiness. They both laughed. The morning sun was already high as Nelson and Jeremiah arrived in the city. The streets were bustling with cars and people, a stark contrast to the quiet village they had left behind. After walking through several streets, they stopped in front of 199, a large mansion surrounded by a high fence and an electronic gate. The house was beautiful, with large windows and a lush garden visible beyond the gate. Jeremiah turned to his father, confused. Daddy, what are we doing here? Is this where you work now? Nelson smiled slightly, a mysterious glint in his eye. No, Jeremiah, this isn't where I work. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a remote, and clicked a button. The gate slowly opened. Come on, he said, leading Jeremiah inside. As they walked up the driveway, Jeremiah's eyes widened. The mansion was even more impressive up close, with a fountain in the front yard and expensive cars parked in the driveway. Daddy, I don't understand. Whose house is this? Jeremiah asked, his voice filled with curiosity and awe. Nelson took a deep breath and turned to face his son. This, Jeremiah, is our house. Our new home. Jeremiah's jaw dropped. Ours? But how? I thought we were poor. Nelson chuckled softly. We were never truly poor, Jeremiah. I sold our old house because I needed to teach everyone a lesson, especially your mother and sister. I didn't like how we were all spending money without thinking. We were losing our values, our respect for money. Jeremiah was silent for a moment, trying to process everything. So all this time in the village, it was a test? Nelson interrupted, his expression serious. A test to see who truly valued family and who was just there for comfort and money. Jeremiah looked down, thinking about his mother and sister, how quickly they had adapted to their new lives without him or his father. And Mom and Ruth? Nelson's face hardened slightly. They made their choices, Jeremiah. I offered them a chance to come back, but they refused. They chose a different path. Jeremiah felt a mix of emotions, anger, relief, and sadness. I guess they never really understood what was important. No, they didn't, Nelson agreed. But you did, Jeremiah. You stayed by my side even when things were tough. That's why I'm showing you this now. This house, this life, it's for us now. For those who value what truly matters. Jeremiah walked around the living room, touching the soft leather sofas and looking at the artwork on the walls. It was all so luxurious, so far from their humble beginnings in the village. Dad, Jeremiah finally said, turning to Nelson with a serious look. I'm not happy about the deception, but I understand why you did it. I just wish things could have been different with Mom and Ruth. Nelson nodded, placing a hand on Jeremiah's shoulder. I wish that too, but we can't change people, only how we react to them. Now, let's focus on building a new life here, one that's true to our values. Jeremiah nodded, feeling a mix of loss and hope. Let's make this a home we can both be proud of. Nelson smiled, relief evident in his eyes. That's my boy. Let's start fresh, and this time, let's get it right. As they walked through their new home, planning and talking about the future, the weight of the past began to lift. They were together, they had each other, and that was enough to start anew. Meanwhile, back in the village, Priska and Ruth were sitting outside the hut when a tall, slim man walked up to them. His name was Ikenna, a local man known for gossip and market talk. He stood a few feet away, breathing heavily, holding a rolled-up newspaper in one hand. Good afternoon, Madam Priska, Sister Ruth, he greeted politely. Priska looked him up and down. Ah, Ikenna, what is it? Came to borrow pepper, or what? No, madam, he replied. Ikenna said excitedly, I just got back from the city yesterday, and guess what I saw with my own two eyes? Ruth yawned. If it's not about money or fashion, please don't disturb our peace. The man smiled. It's about your husband, Mr. Nelson. Priska paused, and Ruth rolled her eyes. Your husband is rich again, Ikenna announced. He's living in a big mansion, a house even nicer than the one you people lost. I swear on my life. Priska looked at him and burst into laughter. You're a very funny man, Ikenna. Ruth joined in. Are you okay, or is the city sun still messing with your head? I'm serious. Ikenna insisted. The house has marble floors, a fountain, big cars, people say it's his. I even saw Jeremiah with him. They both looked fresh, clean, and rich. Priska slapped her thigh and laughed louder. Let me guess, you think he bought it, right? My friend, that house belongs to his boss. That man is a security guard. Do you hear me? A security guard. Ruth nodded. My daddy, a rich man again, with that old face and torn clothes? He must be washing cars or cutting grass for the real owner of the house. Ikenna frowned. But I saw him open the gate with a remote. He even told someone it's his house. Priska hissed. A remote is not proof. Maybe he was just told to clean the place. Don't let this foolish man confuse you. Ruth crossed her legs. That's how poor people act rich. Let him continue pretending. We know him well. Ikenna scratched his head. But what if he's truly rich again? Priska stood up, placed her hand on her waist, and said with pride, "Let me tell you, that man can never make it again. Never. His suffering is permanent. He's a finished man. Don't waste your energy defending a failure." Ruth stood beside her. "In fact, since you love him so much, go and tell him we said he's still a disgrace. Tell him that his wife and daughter said so." They both laughed again, and Ikenna shook his head sadly. "I just thought you should know. Now you know." "We don't care," Priska said sharply. "Carry your gossip and go. We're busy." Ikenna turned and walked away slowly, shaking his head. He had seen pride before, but this was different. As soon as he left, Priska sat back down, smiling with pride. "Ruth," she said, "I didn't want to say anything in front of him, but let me tell you the good news." Ruth turned to her mother eagerly. "What is it?" Priska whispered, "The king has asked me to be his wife. I'm now dating the king." Ruth screamed, "Mama, you want to be queen?" Priska nodded proudly. "Yes, once he marries me, I'll move into the palace. I'll wear beads, silk, and walk with maids behind me." They both laughed again, imagining the fake royal life. "Me," Ruth added, "that married man I'm seeing now said he wants to divorce his wife and marry me." Priska clapped her hands. "You see? Good things are coming our way." Ruth smiled and looked at the sky. "Soon we'll be on top again. No more people asking where we're coming from. No more stress. No more lectures from Jeremiah or shame from that poor man you call husband." Priska laughed loudly. "Let them stay in the city and die with fake riches. We will rise in this village and rule." They both laughed and laughed, unaware that they were celebrating foolishness. They didn't know they had lost the real crown, the real treasure. Time was ticking, and truth was coming like a storm. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.